And good morning. Welcome again to another edition of Straight Talk Saturday. I'm Angela Atkins of Your Health Unbound, and I look forward to talking to you today about hormones. Now, we all have hormones, and there are about 50 different hormones in the body, and they do tremendous work. And we need to understand a little bit better about how they function and how we can, for ourselves, find the best way to interpret what they're doing in our bodies and how we can benefit them to help our bodies be the best they can be. The first thing, let me give you a little background of why this is important to me. Many of you know my story. About a dozen years ago, I started feeling ill. I was having extreme fatigue, chronic pain points across my body, and I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue. Good morning, Leslie. Happy to have you here. Because of that, I had seen many doctors, and they had done many different types of blood tests. What I didn't understand is the correlation between all the different things that was going on with my body and how they were coming out as disease. So doctors would perform these tests, and then they would interpret what those results would mean. And based on their interpretation, they would either prescribe something or send me off to another doctor. So what I've learned over time is that as miraculous as our bodies are, they try all the time to repair the damage we inflict upon them. But what happens is that not always can we repair something past a certain point. Our bodies will try to fix whatever we've done to them. For example, I've told you this before, I have celiac disease. Good morning, Cheryl. So happy to have you here. And what I have found is in the past, I didn't make the associations that if I would eat something and it would cause a pain, that food was causing the pain. So the association only came about after the test said, oh, by the way, your body doesn't like gluten, therefore you shouldn't eat it anymore. Well, that's pretty straightforward. But what happens when you have all these other tests and they, some of them tell you one thing, some of them tell you another thing, different doctors interpret them differently. So the point is to understand how your body works, and what your body is telling you is in the results of those tests that you get. Many times there are blood tests the doctors give you. They run a whole gamut of tests, but specifically for hormones, well, thank you for the hearts. I'm glad to see you're here with me today. Those whole gamut of tests can mean different things at different times, and they should be accompanied by other tests. So what I'm encouraging you to do is look at your whole body as one unit, and don't take one number, because sometimes the doctor will throw a number at you. Oh, this value is high or this value is too low, and it's only one piece of the puzzle. If you look at your health as a puzzle, you need more pieces to see the whole picture. So if you only have one test to determine one thing, you only have one piece of the puzzle. So you need more data points, you need more puzzle pieces. And so you should have more extensive testing. Now, I'm not talking about overdoing testing, but if certainly you're feeling a particular symptom or a group of symptoms, there are likely groups of things happening. For me, as I said, the whole problem that I was having with the fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, really boils down to what people said in the past was adrenal fatigue. Now we're using the term HPA axis dysregulation, and that's a whole topic on itself that maybe one day I'll cover. But basically it means your hypothalamus, your pituitary gland, and your adrenal glands are misfiring. They're dysregulated. And in that process, what you discover is those hormones associated with those glands are out of whack, basically. So how do we know they're out of whack? Well, we have symptoms. For women, many times, the symptom may be weight gain. And a lot of women say, I can't lose weight after a certain age, or I have difficulty, I'll start down the path and I'll only lose a little bit and then it stops. Well, a lot of times it can be our hormones that are doing that. And this happens to men too. But typically for women, because our hormones get changed over a lifetime, many of us have bouts of weight gain in puberty when our hormones are going a little crazy. Then sometimes you'll see extreme fluctuations in different types of health issues. If a woman gets pregnant, maybe postpartum, as they age and go through menopause, all these things play a big factor in our hormone health. So for that reason, women especially need to look at all their different hormone values. And again, take all the puzzle pieces and put them together. It's not just simply one piece. It's not, and for us mainly, if we're looking at it, we're thinking, oh, these must be sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and even testosterone, because both men and women have these hormones, but they're not the only ones. And most especially when you're looking at, why can't I lose weight? Why am I being so resistant? My body's just not giving up when I try everything. And you know my philosophy, it's not about eating less and exercising more, because all that does is make you hungry and exhausted. You have to fuel your body to be able to use it properly. And in order to do that, there are certain things your body needs, and it's different functions that the body goes through in order to produce these hormones. And what that is the use of the nutrients that the food is giving you to function properly in your cells, and those cells then do the proper work. No matter what part of the body it is, that's what has to happen. So for this particular talk today, we're going to talk about what are 5, and there are more, but what are 5 of the hormones that could potentially keep you from losing weight, or potentially keep you from feeling optimal. And the first one we're going to talk about is, well, overall, we're going to talk about a bunch, but what I want to say is, the first thing you need to look at is, are you experiencing symptoms? If you are experiencing symptoms, then you should see a physician or your medical practitioner and say, let's test this out, because these symptoms could be as simple as you starting to have anxiety. You didn't have it previously, it's now growing, and it could be a sign that some hormone is off balance. You start having headaches where you haven't had them before. You feel fatigued more than normal. I know with a lot of women who reach mid-age, they start losing their hair and they think it's normal. Well, it's not. It could be a function that your glands, your hormones are off, and you need to have that diagnostic to prove which one it is and how to regulate it. There could be, adult onset acne. People think sometimes, oh, I just hit that age. No, it could be a hormonal change. So you need to look at all those things, and you need to have them evaluated. And again, not just one thing, but all the pieces of the puzzle put together. And so before you can do that, let's understand what these hormones could be that are affecting your body in the way that it is. So the first one I'm going to talk about today is ghrelin. It's the hunger hormone. So basically, it's the hormone that signals your body, hey, I'm hungry, I need to eat, let's do it right now. And the longer you go, the stronger that signal gets. But if it gets out of balance, it kind of never gives up that signal. And so you really feel hungry all the time. And that's where those cravings come from, because your body is saying, I have too much ghrelin, I need to have some reduction here. And until I get the ghrelin reduced, I'm just going to keep telling you to feed me. And that's why sometimes people feel like, I just need a snack here, or I really need something now to satisfy whatever it is that's going on. And it's not that difficult to satisfy that ghrelin hormone, because really what it's looking for is something nutrient dense. You want to give your body something it can really seize upon, that's going to make it feel full and satisfied. And the simplest thing to do is just by having a leafy green salad. Those nutrients in those greens are going to help you feel full and satisfied. And in addition, it's got plenty of fiber, which also gives you that feeling of fullness and satisfaction. And so just have one before every meal. If you have a salad first, and most of our social conventions were around having a salad plate before having the meal, but they've gotten smaller and smaller. So what I'm suggesting is that you have a larger salad. You get that fullness first, and then you won't have that residual of eating excess amounts of other foods. Like some people go to excess in eating the amount of protein. We don't need a lot of protein. We maybe need 25 to 30 grams, which works out to about 3 or 4 ounces per meal. So if you're eating excessive amount of protein, you may not be getting the satisfaction you need because your body really wants that fullness from the fiber and from all the nutrients in those leafy greens. So it's really pretty simple how to control ghrelin. Just have a salad, fill it with brightly colored vegetables, lots of leafy greens, and you'll actually feel much better. So good morning, Sharon. Nice to have you here with me. So I don't know if any of you have had this experience where ghrelin doesn't give up its call to you. I know it did for me back, especially when I had my issues with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue. I felt hungry all the time, and that only contributed towards making it worse for me because I was going in this cycle of eating the wrong thing. Instead of supporting my body, I was looking at just feeding that hunger, that, filling that void. It just felt like there was a hole in my stomach all the time, and I just had to eat something. So instead of feeling that way, the easy solution would have been to have a really great leafy green salad, a fairly large one, so you feel full, almost like you've had a meal, and then you could just supplement your salad with some protein and whatever else you're having for a meal. We really need to look at those things that we view as entrees, the large portion of our meal, the big pieces of meat. When you go to a restaurant, sometimes they give you these huge portions of proteins, and it's really too much. Your body only needs a small amount, as I said, maybe 3 to 4 ounces. So, cut it up and take some home with you and have it for another meal. And that way, if you fill up on the greens and the vegetables, your body actually gets the nutrients it needs without having to suffer the onslaught of that excess protein that takes a lot to digest. And so I'm encouraging you, do the simple thing first. You're hungry? That's fine. Have a salad first. See if that calms you for a while. If you're still hungry, then of course, go ahead and eat your meal. But if not, let the salad do the things that really help you. Good morning, Toby. Glad you've joined us. So one of the other things I want to talk about, hey, Steve, happy to have you here this morning. The next hormone I want to talk about is leptin. It's really the counterpart to ghrelin. So ghrelin says, I'm hungry, feed me. Leptin's the other one that says, okay, I've had enough. I can stop eating now. And it controls 100% of your way the body burns fat. So it's called the fat controller. And because of that, it is produced by your fat cells, and it plays a huge role in appetite control. So if the ghrelin levels are out there yelling at you, hey, feed me, feed me, feed me, and leptin can't keep up with it, if that hormone is insufficient, excuse me, let me take a drink real quick. Always have water nearby. So if it's not getting that signal to the brain that says, go ahead and stop eating, I've had enough, I feel full, I feel satisfied, you become what's called leptin resistant. And because of that, you will never feel satisfied. Once your body reaches the point where it is leptin resistant, you're going to feel cravings and you're going to feel like you're hungry all the time. But again, let's go back to what we're talking about with ghrelin. The way to do that is to satisfy your body with the nutrients it needs. Now, so many of us live busy lives. We're too busy. We get up in the morning and we'll roll out without giving our bodies any nourishment. Now, if you're already healthy and you already know what your body needs, that may be okay for you. Your body may be accustomed to it. Your body may be able to adjust to an intermittent fasting, which is what that is. So you haven't eaten all night, and now you're going longer in the morning. And that's perfectly great for someone who has control over the way their body functions and they don't have any nutritional deficiencies. But if you're just starting out, you want to feel better, you want to start that weight loss process, you want to start feeling like your body is functioning more optimally, I suggest start with a good breakfast. Now, even if you're not a breakfast person, so there are some options here. First, you could start with something, a typical breakfast, maybe a couple of eggs with some Canadian bacon. That will give you some protein, and you cook it in a healthy fat like butter. You'll be getting proteins and fats, and maybe you might make an omelet and throw in the leftover veggies from the meal before, and there's your carbohydrates. That's a complete meal. And really, you're looking about that 30 grams of lean protein. You've got it right there in your omelet with your Canadian bacon. How simple. Don't want to cook in the morning? Okay, you still can do it. Fortunately, there's a lot of really good protein powders on the market. I suggest using plant protein. I'm not really fond of whey because I do think that milk can be a potential allergen for people and causes inflammation. So if you're already in the process of having problems with how your body is functioning, I wouldn't throw something else in the mix that could potentially cause inflammation. So for that reason, I recommend the plant protein. Find one you like. There's plenty on the market. I just recently found another one that I'm really enjoying, and you can mix it up as you like. But what I suggest to you is don't make it into a fruit smoothie. That's not breakfast. That's dessert. So if you're adding all these fruits to it because it tastes really great, and that's really what we're looking for most times, is that really flavorful stuff, that's not what your body really needs. It's one of those questions of life. Why are the things that taste so good not the best things for us? Don't know. But I do know the things that have the most nutrients in it make us feel better. So instead, make your smoothie in the morning, add in vegetables, add in maybe one piece of fruit or one serving of fruit for sweetness, but don't make it a fruit smoothie. As I said, that really just turns it into too much sugar. And fructose is really hard for the body to break down. Fructose is the sugar in fruit. So let's do something like, in my morning smoothie might have kale and a couple slices of cucumber and a celery stalk, a half a banana, my protein powder. And if I want to mix it up, I put in a tablespoon of cacao powder. Now, it's not chocolate that you would get a chocolate mix. It is truly just the raw cacao powder, the one that's going to give you the best antioxidant benefit. So look at it as making a recipe for a different type of smoothie. It's not going to be the smoothie from the mall. It's going to be the smoothie that's going to give you the energy, to give you the fuel for the day. So there are your options. Something traditional, maybe by an omelet and bacon, or a smoothie, which is more, I guess, the new way of going. But either way, you're going to get your protein. And I suggest using maybe a nut milk. I don't recommend cow's milk because of the potential inflammation that could come, because for some people it is an allergen and could cause other issues. But then there are people that use coconut water or just plain water, whatever works for you, whatever tastes good, and you're going to be able to sustain it. That's the important part. You have to be able to sustain these things. Mix it up. So today you use a protein powder that has a flavor to it that you like. Make sure to read the ingredient list because that's important too. Or tomorrow you might have the omelet with the Canadian bacon, and just mix it up over time, and so you don't feel like you're just stuck in a rut. And I think that's for most people. They think, oh, breakfast food, what do I eat again? And they go to the easy stuff, the pastries, the bagels. And it's simple, it's easy. I pop it in the toaster, I'm done. It may take a little more work, but isn't your body worth it? Isn't your health worth taking that little extra step? So I want to take a minute and say hi to Melanie and to Jim. Thank you again. Thank you everybody for joining me this morning. And so as I go on, I want to tell you, please feel free to drop your comments in the chat box. I'm happy to look at them and answer any questions. But I'm going to go on now to one of the most important hormones in the body. It is probably what I call it is gland central. It's the thyroid gland. Now, it is the mechanism we think of as like the furnace of the body and does a lot of metabolism regulation. And it's really very important, but it's often very mismanaged. And because of that, it gets shifted out of balance. I mean, again, hormones get shifted for women, as I said, during childbearing years, during menopause, and this is the one that really gets thrown off whack. And I think that may be what happened to me because I was in that premenopausal stage when I had my issues with my thyroid, that it just decided to go haywire. And because of that, I found that I had more fatigue, the hair loss, the typical things when you think thyroid is out of balance. But when I went to see the doctors and get those tests, there were blood tests, and some doctors only did specific things. For thyroid, many doctors, even endocrinologists, will only look at your TSH, the thyroid stimulating hormone. Well, that's the hormone that tells you what your pituitary is doing. Is that pituitary putting out enough thyroid hormone? Well, again, that's only one piece of the puzzle. You need the other pieces. And so it wasn't until I started seeing a more functional doctor who then put the pieces together by looking at T3, T4, and the reverse and free of those. Now, I'm wondering how many of you have had thyroid tests in the past, and have you gone to your doctors requesting, specific tests? Because I know some doctors will say, I only test TSH. And if you have a doctor that does that, put a 1 in the chat box and let me know. Are there doctors still out there saying, I only test for TSH and that's the number I go on and that's the one we'll say is going to be the value that will say your hormones are working or not? And if you have a doctor that does more functional treatment, put a 2 in the box if they're looking at your T3, T4, the reverse and free values of those, because that's really what you need to look at, that big puzzle picture. So if it's just TSH, you're only looking at that one value. Now for me, and I don't know how it works, my TSH was in that normal range, which of course is fairly large. It's like 0.5 to 4. That's a pretty large range. And so if you're anywhere in that range, the doctor may say you're normal. But the underlying values in that were my T3 and T4 were out of whack. It was as if my body was pumping out thyroid hormone and not being able to use it. And so that's why I felt fatigued all the time. I wasn't able to use the active portion, the T3 portion of my thyroid hormone. So has anyone had that issue where they go to the doctor, they want to know what the values are, and they only give you the TSH test? If that happened to you, just put a 1 in the chat box so I know that that's still going on. I don't know if doctors have actually gotten better because I only see a functional doctor. And I know for me, it works well having someone who's looking at the entire picture. Because if a conventional doctor goes by their training, and hopefully the training gets updated all the time, but many older doctors that you may have been seeing for years and years and you feel comfortable with, go by what their training and what their experience is. And I understand that. And as I've said before, I value those doctors and their experience because they've had much of it over a long time, but it may not be everything you need. So if you've gotten to the point that you feel like the sluggishness, maybe the hair falling out, could be sweats or even chill because that furnace is off balance, that's the time to have the doctor look at your thyroid. It could be, yes, go ahead and get the TSH value because that's definitely going to be one of the pieces of the puzzle. But get your T4, get your T3, get the reverse and the free version because that is going to explain that whole puzzle piece. And a good doctor is going to be able to put it together and say, these values are off and we need to do something about it. And so the thyroid needs very specific vitamins and minerals. But the simple thing, and I have found this for myself, if you suspect that you're not getting enough iodine in your diet, then replace it with a seaweed salad because iodine is what supports the thyroid. So I typically will have a side salad of seaweed salad rather than a regular salad. So I'll mix that up also because I know my thyroid is affected. And thyroid, unlike many other glands and many other hormones, don't regenerate the same way. If you have some sort of thyroid disease, or you really are at a point where you may have had your thyroid removed, you always need some sort of boost for that thyroid hormone. If you don't have a thyroid, you have to take thyroid medication. That's going to keep you sustaining your life. So the simple thing to help boost that thyroid is to add the iodine back in. Some people take supplements, and they're really good out there. I think that's something you should look at with somebody who's a medical practitioner or somebody who's trained for supplements, because there are so many and they offer different things. But on a nutritional level, a very simple thing to do is to add iodine through seaweed or through some sort of sea vegetable. There are lots out there. There are excellent sources of iodine. Now, many people think, hey, I get iodine from my salt. Well, the iodized salt is really different in table salt. It's not really giving you the nutrient you need. You really want to add something that is natural, not forced in. This is with added iodine. You don't want added. You want it natural. So something like saltwater fish, or something that is from this, sea vegetables, are going to give you what you need in the form of iodine. So there are plenty of other vitamins and minerals that you can use to help support your thyroid function. But for me, I think right now the thing is focus on iodine if you really think you are missing some key component that is giving your thyroid less than optimal levels. So has anybody else experienced thyroid issues? I feel like thyroid is probably one of the big factors in many people's health issues, because it is the one thing that's trying to control our whole bodies. And for that reason, I think we need to look at it very closely and all those puzzle pieces put together. So let's move on. So the next thing I want to talk about is cortisol, and that's referred to as the stress hormone. Yep, stress is a natural part of life. I get it. And we need to be able to respond to stress effectively. But when it's out of control, it really makes us feel out of control, and it drives that cortisol level up. Now with cortisol, the more stress you have, the more your cortisol increases. And as we age, we go through so many things where, we've got families, we've got maybe aging parents, we've got stressful jobs. Life in general can be stressful, and if we don't learn to manage it, it does drive that cortisol up. And because of that, it can also drive up our body fat, because cortisol tends to reside, it accumulates in the fat cells around our belly. So that's one reason we need to address it. That again, we could use a very simple test, and rather than a blood test for cortisol, I found more reliable are saliva tests. That seems to be the gold standard now. And so if you feel your cortisol's out of whack and you really need to get that in control, that's something you should check with your doctor. Get a cortisol AM/PM saliva test. It measures your saliva over the course of the day, and the doctor is able to track the rise and fall of cortisol in your body. And again, that's the thing we need to know. Is it doing a proper cycle? Because remember, we're built to follow the rising of the sun and the falling, of night. And so those circadian rhythms should be on base with our hormones too. And if they're out of whack, it can show up in the testing which you get with saliva testing, where it should be elevated in the morning and slowly go down towards the evening. And your doctor can evaluate that with you. And so if you've ever had a saliva test, you'll know it's very simple. It's non-invasive. And I really feel that it's one of the simpler but more complete tests that we can get. Good morning, Abdulhamid. You're going to have to tell me specifically how to say your name. Drinking 25, I'm assuming 25 ounces or 25 something of olive oil daily. I would say not many people could drink that much, but you could cook with it. I don't recommend using excessive amounts of anything. I think everything should be as needed for your body. So if you need more oils because your body is lacking in something, that the oils are going to help, whether it's antioxidants or, just healthy fats, then I would say cook in it. 25, and again, if you mean ounces, that's way too much. I would think you're going to look at tablespoon, 2 tablespoons at every meal, maybe adding it into some food that you're cooking, as an ingredient. But I think that may be a little high. You could tell me if there's something else that goes with that, because again, that's a piece of the puzzle. I'm not really sure where we're trying to fit that particular unit of olive oil in. So if you can explain that, I'd be glad to come back to it. But I'm going back here to cortisol. What I really want to tell you is cortisol is a necessary component in your body. You need to be able to react to stress, to short-term stressors. You may have heard this example I've given before. It's one of my favorites. I have 2 dogs, and I usually let them out the back door to go into my backyard. And one day I looked down, and there was this little tiny bunny rabbit sitting outside the back door. And that bunny looked up and saw my 2 dogs getting ready to charge down the steps. And I thought, flight or fight response that bunny just had. Cortisol kicked in, and it had to determine what it needed to do. That's the kind of stressors we're meant to deal with, that immediately save my life stressors. Those, something is about to happen and I need to save myself, but they're not long-term. They're short-term acute situations. And so we can deal with those, and our body is meant to deal with those. That's why we have these mechanisms, the hormones, to help us control that. But when it's long-term chronic stress, where your job is wearing you down, your family is just causing too much chaos, whatever it is, we need to find ways of dealing with that. So one of the ways that I suggest, and it's simple, non-invasive, it's just diffuse an essential oil that makes you feel calm. Diffuse something that's going to make you feel more like you want to relax than you want to go scream somewhere. There are things that, you can diffuse something that's very refreshing, that makes you feel more uplifting, a citrus oil of some sort. Or if you want to feel calm, something like lavender or ylang ylang. They're very calming and very relaxing, and it takes nothing to do it. So you have a diffuser, you fill it up with water, you put a couple of drops in, and you turn it on, and you let it run, and it does its thing, and you're inhaling those particles in your nose, and it's just making you feel great, and your whole body just starts to feel wonderful. That's the simple way of doing relaxation. It's not, you don't have to spend 20 minutes, a half hour meditating. Yes, you can, and that's great. How many of you have the time when you're trying to do something else? Just put the diffuser in the room that you're at, let it diffuse whatever makes you feel really good, and then you just go on with your day. And you can do that in various ways. You can get a diffuser for your car. So if you're stressed out while you're driving, stick the diffuser in whatever, there's USB, and there's, different types that you can use in your car. Let it diffuse until you get that feeling from the aromatic properties of whatever oil you're using. And it's simple, non-invasive, and an easy solution. Has anybody tried to use essential oils just for calming, just for, every day? I have them sitting in my office. I have a little diffuser sitting here that I just put a couple of drops, hit the button, and it just diffuses, and it makes it easier to work because you're getting a great smell, which is something that is beneficial for most people, and you're getting those components of whatever oil that you're using. You're getting those benefits from those components that the oil is, getting into the air and you're breathing into your body. So let's go in and let's talk about the next one. So I'm going to talk about melatonin. That's the sleep hormone. And yes, we all need sleep, but I guarantee you we are chronically sleep deprived as a nation. We are not getting the amount of sleep that we need. And the more sleep we get, that it helps counteract what we need to reduce our stress. So if you increase melatonin, whether it's naturally or through supplementation, it's going to help decrease those cortisol levels. So you need that balance, and that melatonin is going to help you get restorative sleep. And that's the key, the restorative part of the sleep, because when your body is in the restorative mode, it's doing all the detoxing it needs overnight. Your brain detoxes, your body detoxes, and it will also help you keep your weight down. You really need sleep to control your weight. And so if your body is unable to regulate itself correctly, where you're following the circadian rhythms, where you're up when it's light and going to sleep when it's dark, then you may get out of balance with that, and cortisol could be elevated and your melatonin could be off. And that's something else you really want to think about, because your body needs that circadian rhythm to be optimal in order for your body to be optimal. So if you work shift work, you're going to have to figure out what you can do to get your body back on track. It may be that if you're working outside of light cycles, you might need to use a light box to give you that additional UV light that you need to help increase those melatonin levels. But whatever it is, if you try to convert that into a more restful sleep by either supplementing melatonin or eating for extra melatonin, you'll get more restful sleep. And because of that, it will help you in your weight loss. So as anybody, I know I've had years where I've been chronically sleep deprived, especially back when I was suffering with fibromyalgia. Has anybody tried things in the past to help them? For me, it was melatonin. Melatonin did help me. I actually supplemented it. It's not the be-all, end-all, because different people need different things, but I would recommend it if you're not getting enough sleep, that you might want to try to supplement with melatonin just to start the process, and then discuss with your doctor or your medical practitioner what's the best thing for you. So one of the ways to do this, especially if you're out of this light cycle, is to make sure that you actually sleep in the dark. So if you're used to having like night lights or your electronics on, you're really doing your body a disservice. So the first thing you should do is try to turn those electronics off 30 minutes before going to bed. Don't have the lights on, not even a night light. You usually can see fairly well in the dark unless you have some sort of vision problem. Even me with poor vision because of my glaucoma, I can still see well enough at night to get like from my bed to the bathroom and back. So I don't really need to flip a light on, which really disrupts those signals in our brain. So you really don't want those light because that does affect melatonin. Make it dark in the bedroom. As I said, turn off the night lights, turn off the electronics, and try to do that at least 30 minutes before trying to go to sleep, because that gives your body a chance to adjust and get into that cycle, back into that circadian rhythm. And then change it in the morning. In the morning, get up, and as soon, like within 20 or 30 minutes of rising, try to get some sunshine, get some light. If it's a bad day, if there's not enough sunshine, use that light box. There are plenty. I mean, you can buy them anywhere. You get this additional UV rays that really help brighten up your mood, in addition to giving your body the light it needs to get you into the wakefulness mode in the morning. And that's really important. Start that cycle awake when the sun comes up, and as it goes down, get back into restfulness. And that's really going to be helpful for reducing stress as well as reducing weight. So I am I have finished with the 5 hormones, and I'm here to answer any questions. And I want to offer you the free infographic on those 5 hormones. So one, you can be aware of what it is that could be causing your problems with any number of those issues, the weight gain, the hair loss, the whatever it is. I've put the link in the chat box for you to download this. It'll give you a guide to what is the hormone, and maybe take it to your doctor and say, I'm feeling this, and based on what this is, could it be this hormone? Can we check for it? Do I need a blood test? Do I need a saliva test? What is it that I need? And believe me, It's more people than just you and I that need this information. So I encourage you, if you know anybody who's having these symptoms, whether it's just they feel fatigued all the time, or they can't get enough sleep, or they just feel out of sorts in some way, and that they're not being their best selves, share this video with them. Tell them, hey, there is a solution. Maybe it's your hormones. Go have them checked. And when you do have them checked, ask all the questions that you need to ask. Make sure you ask, is this the right test for all of the things in this issue? If this is my thyroid, can we test more than TSH? Can we test T3, T4, the reverse and the free options? Because if you don't have all those numbers, you don't have all those pieces of the puzzle. And that's what you want. You want to put that entire puzzle together, see the full picture. How does this affect me? What can I do going forward? Sometimes it requires medication, as I said. That happens sometimes because our bodies may need it. But many times we can do this naturally. Start eating well. Eat the foods that are going to supply the nutrients that your body needs to have your hormones work most efficiently. Now, most people, I talked about this early on in this segment, saying the old-fashioned of eat less and exercise more only makes you hungry and tired. Well, the truth is, if you eat well, meaning eating enough to feel satisfied, and you exercise moderately, you actually support your hormones. That's what exercise is for, to keep your hormones working well and to maintain where you are. You don't want to get to a point where you're sedentary and things start falling apart again. Even if you're eating well, you still need to move about. So the combination of eating well, exercising moderately, brings together good hormone balance and helps maintain your weight. Now, if you need to lose weight, get those hormones in balance, and then go down the path of finding the right nutrition for you. And as I always call it, figure out your own nutrition prescription, and you will be on your way to a healthy body. Well, I thank you all for coming today. And again, please share this with anybody you think that could use it, because I really think it's important for us to realize there's more to good health than just, taking a pill and trying to mask symptoms. You really need to heal yourself from the inside out. And so feed yourself well to fuel your body, and then supplement as needed. But as always, eat to satisfy, exercise moderately to keep your body in tune. And until next time, I want to say goodbye, everybody, and thank you for coming.